Hello there everyone and welcome back. It is time for match 3 of the championship. And my next opponent, as I'm waiting patiently for the screen to appear, seems to be taking longer than I actually expected, let alone remember. But my opponent's going to be Chaos this time around as we fight Mortier LD. I don't know how exactly it's supposed to be pronounced. I'm assuming it's Mortar and then LD with the capitals there. I honestly have no idea, but this is interesting for me there because ultimately I decide to go with a breakthrough type of mission here, and the thought process behind that there is it kind of forces him to have to move around there. He doesn't get the leniency to try and keep a distance at me basically. If he wants to try and complete the mission, he has to move around across the map multiple times, quite frankly, unless he wants to go straight through the middle to be able to hit all the beacons, which is kind of what I want there ideally. But overall, I don't know what to really expect here, and quite frankly, as I'm watching this recording here, I'm kind of second guessing going with breakthrough there, as I believe I actually accidentally took my dictator for this match. I think I was planning on taking the two tyrants, although to be honest, there's a lot I don't remember from this match there. It seems a bit of a blur, quite frankly, but nonetheless, we're going with the Dictator, Tyrant, and the Retribution. I'm pretty certain the Dictator was a bit of an accident there. I think I was trying to go for the Tyrant and accidentally picked it instead, but it still has its uses, whether it was intentional or not, because it does help with the idea of the Desolator, if it's in play, to help shoot down a lot of his fighters in that, especially if it's only bomber he has access, or actual carrier rather, that he has access to. Because if he goes with Acherons, assuming he's going with the battleship and 2 battle cruisers for his fleet, considering the fleet that we're going with 600 points, he basically has the battleship and 2 battle cruisers as his main fleet, I would imagine. So, oh yeah, I'm pretty certain this is accidental because the Dictator is on the far right there. I would have probably put it in the middle to kind of have a nice little net to protect all my ships if they were to get harassed by bombers. Not to mention it makes it easier for it to protect the beacons as well. Well, at the time, it seemed like a good idea to pick breakthrough for this type of map against Chaos. I wonder if it's ultimately what is the best choice. Because the thought process there is it kind of forces them to spread out, and the main strength that Chaos has as far as their weaponry, especially with their lances, is their ability to focus fire targets down really quickly. And if he wants to get through his beacons in a timely manner without being risked being obliterated by my torpedoes, he would have to spread them out. And of course that puts him in a very awkward position if he wants to try and go across the map, because I have the range to combat him. So long as I keep him within sensor range, which means my Widowmaker cannot die in this kind of engagement. As it turns out that he has 5 ships, so without a doubt it's not the Desolator and the 2 Acherons or even the Spoiler there. I still have problems figuring out which battleship is which, damn it, and I'm not sure why. It's probably because of the D name. Or was it? No, the D letter on both the battleships. But everything's pretty straightforward. I start maneuvering to protect my beacons. I see no fighters. I see no bombers. I don't see anything to suggest he can actually defend against this torpedo wave. So I just continue doing that. I just take my time and welcome him, as I'm basically getting free damage at this point. Hell, even that idolator that we just revealed already took half its damage and I believe forced a repair? At least forced 2 on his cruisers at least. I'm not seeing an effect that indicates the idolator is repairing. Look at that spam, folks. That is overkill. And you want to know what else is overkill? The fact that he just kills all his own bombs. That's what's overkill. I thank him for his contribution though, but now that we have the entire fleet here, we're looking at 3 Carnages, which I believe are the ones with the prow lances. I'm trying to look at the silhouette on the top right. It looks like they're the ones with the prow lances, maybe. That's what it seems to just suggest. But damn, look at those macro cannons. That puts my macro batteries almost to shame just by the sheer number of them. But It just means I'm in a very comfortable position here. I did not pay attention or quickly check to see he had armor penetrating rounds, which could be problematic here, but overall, this is my comfort zone. I have the much better close range fleet, especially with the burst potential that is the torpedoes if I can ever get the opportunity for it. So, this is looking very promising. Again, I talked about how Chaos is really good at focus firing, even with the macro batteries apparently, as I took a bit of damage and a lot of critical hits on my one tyrant there. So, I shielded promptly, basically thwarting any aggressive effort he's doing, and really, he just floats around trying to get another bearing on the damn thing, while at the same time getting some shots on the beacon there. The first of the many beacons he will have to go through. And I think it's safe to say it's not bowling well for him. Bombers are going in as I realize my dictator's in play. I'm pretty certain I realized it right away when I started tabbing through, but his first Carnage is about to die. Torpedoes are coming up to greet the second ship to be my next victim, which is the Hellbringer. It didn't hit as hard as I did. Well, actually, I take that back. With the explosion and, what, 3 torpedoes hitting, there goes half its health in an instant. That was a damn effective bombing run, if I do say so myself. Well, really, torpedo strafing run, if nothing else. As already, the Hellbringer is, like, crippling. It's limping, and it's right in point-blank range of the beacon, which has a massive macro turret with its name on it. And safe to say I don't even need to focus on it anymore. Okay, I take that back. I thought that fire was recent. So, the fire is gone. It's almost completely got out of the fight. So one more macro battery just deals with that. As I focus my attention to the other 2 Carnages. And interestingly enough, I am kind of kicking myself for even focusing on the Hellbringer, as strange as it may sound. Because remember, this is a breakthrough, which means as soon as he loses the next ship, this match is already over, and I would have loved nothing more but to destroy both his remaining cruisers. As he starts to warp out there, I try to board it, I try to destroy it, I try and do everything I can to kill it, but funny enough, despite this being an overwhelming stomp, with a lot of surprising damage there on my ships there, I kind of was not expecting that going into this with Chaos. At least with an awkward type of fleet composition I'm not used to, but even with that said, I am kicking myself a little bit for focusing down the Hellbringer. In all honesty, I should have kept that alive and killed his 2 cruisers, because considering this is a best of 3 format, that's a much more valuable target. I don't know what exactly its point value is, somewhere around 140, 150, if not slightly more than that, so without a doubt, I think it's safe to say that's more valuable than the damn Hellbringer any day, especially in that type of game mode. And regardless of whether the breakthrough was a smart idea, a smart choice, we had ourselves a nice overwhelming victory there. Which makes me wonder, what on earth does he have in mind for the next match? I really am wondering why he did not decide to field the battleship or any of his battle cruisers for that matter. It makes me think, during this time I'm feeling like that was like a throwaway match of some kind, which seems really silly because he threw in all his cruisers, which are pretty important, I think. Well, actually, he wouldn't have the points to field a cruiser for a 700-point battle if it does go to round 3, so maybe that was on purpose to try and throw them away to kill some of my big threats, or at least any of my ships. That's the only assumption I can really make going into the second round, because I'm trying to understand what the hell that was, and surprise, surprise, he goes to Space Station Assault. And I've been finding, even with myself quite frankly, that everyone loves their Space Station Assault. And I guess it's because of how intimidating that station actually is, with its 4 bomber squadrons and all that. But, without a doubt, I am still wondering what to make out of that first match. I'm content it was just really a throwaway match where he tried to do as much damage as possible, ideally, is the thought process. And I am spraying out my fleet, even though the risk of torpedoes is really low, considering how limited Chaos are in choices of torpedoes. I decided to spread this out thinking I can get a nice crisscross like pattern with the torpedoes, because in the case he decides to deploy his ships in the front. For this match though, he actually decides to deploy them all behind his battle station, and as soon as I see that, once everything gets underway. I suspect, or start theorizing, that he's going the extended lance weapon range, if not macro turrets as well for whatever reason. So I am a little bit worried about engagements at that point. As we wait for the timer to count down, I'm just considering how my arc looks, because I see that structure there and it's going to kind of block a number of my Tyrant's torpedoes a little bit. But I commit to it. I got my nice arc there. It works out well in terms of crisscross, because if you see my Imperial Navy, like in the last match with Orcs, I like to keep my prow facing the opponent to minimize the coverage. So this type of formation works well, because then I can hit the stern or the sides of the ship there pretty well with additional torpedoes rather than firing straight at it. And as I said, he deployed all his ships in the back. I've seen 6 ships, so once again I'm still confused. I'm assuming he has to have at least 2 Acrons in there, right? Because deploying behind his battle station just tells me he has extended lances of some kind. He's going to instead use his battle station for a screen, a shield. As some shield it is, huh? It already took 200 points of damage, as he hasn't even deployed the fighters just yet. So, needless to say, I'm really damn comfortable after that first salvo. And with his ships nowhere in position, at least not in the optimal position to intercept the torpedoes, I just continue carrying on as I attempt to try and circle around away from the fleet. And even with that said, he does intercept the torpedoes, and ooh, that was painful. That one ship in the front just took a massive beating. I don't know if he braced for impact or not, but it was still a massive beating. It definitely looks like one as we reveal it. 150 points of damage, with repairs already mitigating some of that, so it had to hurt. And I'm also looking at these. These are Mark II, so these should be the Lance variants again. And things continue to get stranger for me as we're seeing the exact same fleets before, minus 2 Carnages. So I'm still wondering what the hell's going on here. I still feel confident with my situation, as already his ships are being crippled. He doesn't have the benefit of a prow armor to kind of use to shield a good number of shots, and let alone the ramming potential of the prow as well. But ultimately, excuse me there, nothing else to really say, but I feel like the dominant position here just because of the burst potential of torpedoes, as a massive autocast barrage of lightning strikes go underway, doing really nothing of note, quite frankly. Nothing of note. I quickly recharge the shields for absorbing more damage, and we just sit back and watch as everything just starts to melt. Ramming is underway, lock-on is engaged, and the retribution, while unfortunately I did just repair, it somehow got like multiple critical hits immediately after, like 5 lightning strikes. So the initial lightning strikes themselves did absolutely nothing, but somehow he managed to get like 3 critical hits. Because the generator's also gone down now, if you haven't noticed. So I don't know how the lightning strikes failed so badly, and his lance without lock-ons managed to do work. Nonetheless, I am tearing these ships apart there. Since one Hellbringer's about to break. It's kind of funny. I don't know if that torpedo was intended for the idolator in front of the retribution, or for the actual Hellbringer that I just murdered. I'm going to give myself the benefit of the doubt and say that was just my badass moment of shooting down the Hellbringer, and ideally, if possible, get the idolator as a bonus, which unfortunately it got too close, so there was no damage to really brag about there. Nonetheless, this retribution without its shields is taking massive amount of damage. A massive beating, and with these lances, he's doing surprising work with them there. He's not even in range for armor-piercing rounds, and he's hitting like hell. So even with the generators down, I decided to commit to retreat with this thing. It's gonna take a while though. I think I'm starting to get a little bit spoiled with the 7.5 second regular warp out time, but it makes it out, but heavily damaged. So no matter how this goes, despite how it may appear, it's not going to be available for the final match. So I just got to clean up this mess, because you know what's left, assuming this goes to his 3rd round, is he only has his battle cruisers and his battleship. So I'm starting to wonder if this is his plan all along. He somehow felt so confident he could win this match, I guess, that he was willing to commit the remainder of his light cruisers to this engagement. If I had to guess, I'm honestly not sure. I'm still trying to comprehend it, but I think that's the thought process here. With only 2 cruisers left that are about to meet their maker, although losing the prow and the torpedoes on the Tyrant does not help matters a little bit. With that said, that is his standing fleet if I manage to kill this entire thing, which is going to happen. I'm not going to leave you in suspense. These cruisers all die, as my one Tyrant alone that's already crippled has more health than both of them combined. So we just clean up the mess, and then we have to deal with a battle station, and this is going to be an interesting experience for me because I'm not comfortable as is fighting against the battle station, as made apparent with the orc battle. As I cancel a warp, oh yeah, he tried to get away, it did not pan out, and I'm not going to let him get away, as he tries again with this other ship. I think he canceled the warp, so he knew it probably wasn't going to make it, even with the heavily damaged, so I could have just ignored it completely, I guess. If I want to criticize my own play a little bit, I could have just ignored that Hellbringer. It was already heavily damaged. The mess is cleaned up, but we're in a bit of an odd predicament. As I was trying to allude to before, I am really uncomfortable and uncertain on how to engage this battle station. So, mainly what I start off with is to try and collect myself and get my repairs back underway. As somehow, despite how it looks there with the Cobra reinforcement, they deployed an asteroid field, so I wasn't happy about that. It's only like 10-20 damage, mind you, but still, that seems silly. It seems silly there. I try to reload, as seen with the one Tyrant there. Do silent running for some reason on the other one there. I'm trying to keep my ships from getting hit there, although these extra frigates he spawned is kind of complicating things a little bit. I'm trying to avoid damage and just bide my time to repair and get myself to fighting status, because I don't know how I should approach this battle station there. I guess with armor-piercing rounds I could just dive in there and possibly just straight up kill it. I'm just not stupid to neglect these bombers that are flying their way over. As already, I see them coming. I try to position my other Tyrant to kind of intercept. I don't think it gets any shots off except for that last squadron, but those bombers are still no joke, despite how I could probably just destroy that thing right now. A couple of lucky hits and hull breaches could just kill these Tyrants really quickly, on top of all the additional weaponry that battle station already has. There's a reason, folks, that the defending player loses 100 points, has 600 points versus my 700 in this round. There's a reason that... excuse me there. There's a reason that this battle station is, despite it being stationary and never moving, is worth 100 points of a fleet. And as the bombers again make their attempt over, we are starting to get a little more aggressive. I unfortunately only have 2 torpedo waves available, but I'm trying to look. I think all his fighters are down on the battle station, so even with only 10 torpedoes total to fire, no, I take that back. They just weren't moving, so I do try to push closer, slowly but surely there, because I basically have all my ships trying to protect each other right now. They all have shield transfers. I'm having them crisscross with each other whenever bombers start arriving, so I'm just trying to put dip my toe in the water, as it were, because now bombers are going after either the Tyrant in back or the Dauntless. It's hard to tell from that positioning. Oh, they're going after the Tyrant in back, which is kind of funny because it has the most health of the fleet right now, so that seemed kind of silly in retrospect, but I still got the nice tight formation. We are slowly chipping down the damage, and ultimately I start getting tired of these fighters and start flying some of my Cobras and frigates in there to try and shoot them down. Try and at least force him, if nothing else, to deploy more assault fighters to kind of deal with these torpedoes I'm shooting. Even if the Dauntless was not very impressive, he still shot them all down. Jeez. but slow and steady. It's all it says. All I have to really say at this point. Not very exciting, but still very tenuous. As again, I'm going to assume those bombers are on autocast or something because they're repeatedly going after the same tyrant, and it's not working very well with this type formation. So, with that said, I'm still trying to contemplate what his strategy, his ultimate goal was, and to give him the benefit of the doubt, I seriously believe he thought he could win this match, even with the light cruisers and regular cruisers, and he was saving his battleship, his battle cruisers for the cruiser clash. I am almost certain of that. I very much believe that is the case, because really, none of those cruisers, none of those light cruisers had favors. That is kind of my main thought process, my main reasoning why that was the case, because he would have so much leftover renown in that case, unless he just invested all like 5 upgrade slots for his Acherons, and even then he would still have some renown left, for at least for favors on the Acherons. So I am convinced he was trying to break down my ships there, and he was so confident he would win this battle. Is what ultimately comes down to, because in all seriousness, in both those rounds, I kind of underestimate the damage potential of the Chaos Fleet, even if they were all cruisers and mostly light cruisers for this match, this battle here. They pushed away my retribution, but that was mostly due to the damn lucky critical hits after all his lightning strikes and my repair thereafter. So that was the main reason why that retribution, I think, got scared off, had to retreat, but still, I believe I underestimate his damage potential, and while that could have cost me, we win with a decisive 2-0. It was slow, sure, but I'm still trying to figure out my options.